Hey, everybody. Welcome to the We Talk Politics podcast. As always, I am Corey Tanasoff, joined by co-host Gerald Mendoza, and today we have special guest on Grant. Grant, introduce yourself a little bit.
My name's Grant. From you guys who know me, I make videos now, switched over to politics. I'm going full force and trying to make America a better place.
Well, it's a noble deed, and I think every person here could say the same thing, that everybody's just trying to make America a better place, one step at a time. So we are going to start at the beginning of the week where we left off. When we left off last podcast, it was on Monday, and the debate happened the day after. So we're going to jump right into that exciting debate, which we all got to watch for a good old 2 hours and sit through it and have to deal with.
Yeah. You don't want my opinion first. Why don't you guys go ahead?
All right, Gerald, take it.
All right. Again, I was telling you guys just a few minutes ago, but yeah, I agree with this one tweet that I saw while I was watching the election, and it was this comedian that was saying, "I have never prayed so hard for a commercial break in my life because it's giving me a headache." And I like it was. I think this is the first debate I've ever seen where honestly, and I think the almost consensus from almost every spot is that really that they don't think either candidate was better off for it after the debate than they were. So really nobody won. They were just trying to figure out who lost worse. And
that's a better way of putting it. Yeah, who lost worse?
Yeah, yeah. And it was a lot of what I believe what the debate moderator was going for, Chris Wallace at the time, he tried to characterize it as open dialogue. That was not dialogue.
Wow.
That was just crosstalk and interruptions from both sides, and false information being thrown in, sound bites being taken. It was from question number one really is when it started going off the rails, because the first question, if you remember, was about the situation with the Supreme Court vacancy and the nomination of Amy Coney Barrett and the Senate process to try to fill the seat. However, as soon as the question went to, I believe, Joe Biden, he's the one that really took it off the rails, and then at least at that question, because Chris Wallace asked the president first. He said, "Do you know you've nominated Amy Coney Barrett? What's your view on the situation in the Supreme Court in general?" And he gave a pretty straightforward answer. Nothing too out of the ordinary. And then when he asked President Biden for his 2 minutes for rebuttal, he started going on about how they needed to protect healthcare and a bunch of different things. And that's really when the interruption started, and they did not cease all the way through the end of the debate. There were, like I said, numerous false accusations. I was watching with my parents. We sat down and watched the whole thing, but really, we needed coffee after that. It was just, it was such a far cry from what I expected. And I really don't know what I expected at this point, but I know I didn't expect what we got in terms of the behavior that was exhibited from both candidates. It was bad. It was like, I thought the second presidential debate in 2016, where it was the day after the Billy Bush video recording came out with Donald Trump with the certain catchphrases, but then also the multiple accusers of Bill Clinton were in the audience for. It was, that was a mess. But this takes the cake as one of the most dysfunctional political debates I've ever seen in my life.
Well, that's what America does best. We put fun back in dysfunctional.
Oh, there you go.
And Grant, your thoughts on the matter?
Oh man, okay. Let's all take a step back here, because listen, I like Trump. Okay, I mean, obviously it's pretty obvious. I've seen him speak multiple times in person. Ever since I went to some of those turning point events, he's a great motivational speaker. He's very, very eloquent when he speaks. However, man, during these debates, listen, everything that Trump did might have just gone down the tubes because of the way that he was portraying himself. And unfortunately for us in America, I don't think that Biden's going to be a better choice. But I think if I was an outside person watching this and I saw how Trump was acting, I saw how Biden was acting, which wasn't any better either. Don't get me wrong. I just genuinely wouldn't be happy with either of the results of my candidate choices. And second, I'd probably go with Biden because he at least acted a little bit more presidential than Trump did. And it's unfortunate because all the stuff that Trump has done, especially for women and minorities, gone. And plus, if they don't even know about it, to compare, okay, well, maybe he sounds dumb when he speaks here, but he does some great things. If they don't even have that to compare, well, then there's going off of ignorance just from how he acted on the debate. And that's we're in trouble if that happens. Because truth be told, I think Biden, like how Gerald put it, I think Biden lost worse. I'm sorry, I think Trump lost worse than Biden was actually going to be their other alternative that they would choose.
Well, and I would say I agree first with Gerald on his aspect of there's no winner here.
No.
And this is all for pomp. This is just it's reality television is what it is. Nothing got done. Nothing got established. Little was talked about on actual base of policy, on actual base of what would you do as president? Where do you stand on this issue? There was too much crosstalk, and it ended up just being God save America. And Grant, I will agree with you on the point that at the end of this debate, we were all sitting there wondering, what the hell did I just watch?
Yeah.
And from a sitting president, we should expect more than that performance.
And from the previous administration's vice president.
Correct.
To the same effect.
Exactly. From people who have literally spent years in the Oval Office, inside the White House. We deserve better, and we should expect better. Yeah. We can't settle on this and say, oh, this person won. This guy won. But from what you're saying, Grant, I do agree that no matter your position on it, it's who came out, who lost.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, as Gerald said, I think it's who lost worse in that debate.
Gerald said who lost worse. And as you exemplified there, like I could honestly say that I think they both lost very terribly. Yeah. But it's who took the bigger hit. And I would say that it would be President Trump. And it goes on the basis of this is supposed to be his bread and butter. He is a rally master. He is a menace on the campaign trail. And that's what was one of the big things setting him back in 2020 is that the campaign trail is a lot different than it was in 2016. And this was his first opportunity to reach a mass audience, and he blew it. He had every opportunity to answer certain questions easily and promptly, and he did not make it anything more than a pageantry. Grant.
I mean, this really was Trump's opportunity to show all the good things he's done. However, again, like you just said, his performance was really bad. This was his chance to show just how good of a president he could have been, but from the way he interrupted Biden and the way he went back and forth. I mean, again, as Gerald said, it wasn't really much about who won. It was more of like who lost worse. And I mean, he really had a chance to do so many things right. He could have shown everyone watching at home, listen, if I can just act presidential, if I could have just acted like I have what's the best interest for America and didn't seem like it was a pageant show, like you said. If I just had, I mean, it was like two grown men fighting over a Jell-O cup in a retirement home, and he really had a chance to do it and blew it.
This is Walter Matthau, and I forgot the other guy's name, from Grumpy Old Men arguing with each other, trying to get snow on the other person's truck. This is exactly what was going on. To that effect, Grant, he did get some good information out. He did point out, maybe not specific numbers and all that, but he did point out that he's working a lot more, from what I can tell, towards trying to improve the African American communities around the country. And he did mention that, and he said, Joe, you've been there before. You didn't do this. You didn't solve this problem. I'm working on solving this problem. But again, it was all lost because of the sound bites and the interruptions. And like I think you pointed out on debate night, I saw your Instagram post, and you were just like, there's just no decorum that we were expecting to have, that we thought they would have risen. Both candidates would have risen to the occasion.
Yeah.
And they both really sunk tried to sink below each other's level, and one of them just sunk even further. And that's exactly where we are as a country.
Looking at past debates, when the biggest debate blunder of the past was Ronald Reagan versus Jimmy Carter, this ranks below that for a performance by Jimmy Carter, but by both people in the debate. I want to make a note of this between the moderator, Chris Wallace, and Donald Trump and Joe Biden. The combined age in that room was 223 years old.
I mean, I think it's great because the left wants so badly to like, oh, we need to get a woman president and a minority president, and who do they choose? An old white guy. I mean, literally.
So their combined age only beats out the foundation of the United States of America by 21 years. So if you add my age to their age, that's how old America is.
Yeah.
So putting that out there, we had a bunch of old cats. Little of the President Trump's presidency has he displayed of being a presidential, a solid, I'm, stern and serious. And one of the big quotes was speak softly, but carry a big stick.
Right.
And that's one of the things that has led the presidency in the last decade. And he hasn't really ever portrayed that because he doesn't know how to speak softly. In this debate, it really cost him because, as you were saying, Grant, this would have been an incredible time to show, here's what the numbers look like on our employment side and development in the middle of a recession. Here is what we have done for expansion of market. Here's what we have done for different communities. And then if he wants to take a shot at Joe Biden, he can say, well, when you guys were in a recession, your numbers were only this. And now we have every business shut down and we still have this.
Yeah.
So he could have gone that angle, but instead it was, ad hominem after ad hominem between them both. I mean, there were shots coming in from Joe Biden talking about Donald Trump wouldn't know a suburban neighborhood unless he took a wrong turn. And Donald Trump saying to Joe Biden, don't talk to me about smart. You finish in the bottom half of your class, which are both excellent burns. If this were a Comedy Central roast, got him. That's it. But this is the presidential debate. We're not here for comedy. If we were here for comedy, we would have tuned in Saturday to SNL with Alec Baldwin as Donald Trump.
Or I think you're only allowed to do comedy during a debate if you know you're being, if you got it one. Like, who was Ronald Reagan in his second, when he was going for a second term, he's like, they were talking about his old age. And he's like, no, I will not, for political reasons, exploit my opponent's youth and inexperience.
Yeah, they're like, oh, same age. You took the quote. I was going to say that. I was trying to find a way to like weasel that in there. But I mean, you're right, because during the times of Reagan, even when you had a funny banter or a funny kind of jab at your opponent, it was still very civil.
It was lighthearted.
Yeah. I mean, what we saw between Trump and Biden was just full-on assaults. And don't get me wrong, Trump just completely, botched the entire thing and was interrupting all the time. But Biden wasn't any better. But with times like Reagan, I mean, just the civility between the two. I mean, even when Reagan was giving one of his speeches, a balloon popped in the distance, and he went, "Missed me," as if someone. And just, I miss leadership like that. I really miss how presidential debates, or I really missed leadership. And I think that's what America didn't see in the debates. They just saw two grown men fighting over Jello Cup in the retirement home.
I've long said this. I didn't ever think I would miss George Bush.
I won't go that far. No. I
didn't think I would miss like the 2000s. As much as I am,
let me tell you, I'll miss George Bush, but I'll miss my house more.
As much as I am against a lot of the foundations and principles that both George Bush and former President Barack Obama stood for, at least there was some stability.
Yeah.
At least you knew that when they're going to talk to foreign leaders, they're composed. They're well. They know how to do this. They know the game. They sit down, they listen, they talk, and they listen some more. And as we saw in the debate, this isn't good for us at all. We have two old men as I said, the three guys in that room combined to be 223. Joe Biden and Donald Trump together are 146 or older, because Biden is 76 years old and Trump is 72.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So 148 years old between the two presidential candidates that we have. Well, I should say we have more presidential candidates. If anybody's interested, go online and find out.
Listen,
However, in the debate, the presidential candidates featured
Yeah.
added up to be a century and a half old. And I think that this really, the one of the biggest issues I see here is that actually good people for these presidential positions are pushed over just because of, I guess a good part of America who I might assert doesn't even vote, loves to see this.
Yeah.
And this is, imagine how nice of a debate this would be, or how nice of a year it would be running if, Gerald, give me a somebody who could vie for president. Imagine if it were Kamala Harris versus Mitt Romney running.
Or okay, how about
or even the vice presidential debate. I'm very excited for, because I think that will actually be civil. Mike Pence has not shown in his last 4 years he's the nega Trump. He's the opposite of Trump when it comes to demeanor. He's really quiet and doesn't really get into all that.
Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, we kind of dabbed on not dab. We kind of dabbled a little bit on the.
We dabbed on him.
Yeah.
We just dabbed on that debate. Shout out.
Let's go to the.
Shout out Grant Fox. Got us dabbing on debates out here.
We also have some other developments that happened over this past week that we probably should discuss. Just a few hours ago, the president returned to the White House after being at Walter Reed Medical Center in Bethesda, Maryland, for a few days and a couple nights due to his. Really, I think it was just a monitoring situation and just better review of the health status that the president was in, because they were taking every precaution necessary, which I think is a good thing, because he did actually catch a case of COVID-19 of the coronavirus, and again he is 72. He's up there in age, and even though his health is according to the White House doctor is really good, but he is a bit he is overweight. Those things could combine to be potentially a bad mixture when it comes to COVID-19 and seeing how it affects other people. So they were not going to take any chances, obviously, with the life of the president of the United States. He was admitted into Walter Reed Medical Center. He was walking under his own power the entire time. He seemed pretty all right. He didn't seem like he was in an incredible amount of discomfort. But again, precautions better than leaving caution to the wind. That being said, your thoughts on the president catching the virus and now being back, and he put out a tweet saying, we can't let COVID-19 dominate. You can't let COVID-19 dominate your life. And I think he's trying to send a pretty strong message. Same thing he's been trying to somewhat peddle and somewhat try to push forward during this entire pandemic situation, which is, we have to find a way to not let this pandemic dominate our entire lives, and try to get back to either back to work, or back, outside, or back to a previous social interaction level. But yeah, so he's definitely trying to portray in this moment an image of strength, which I think is important for the American people. Though, like I said, many people are criticizing, but that's because everyone likes to criticize everything at this point. But your guys' thoughts on the president's health at this moment, his recovery, and the situation as a whole. Corey, your thoughts on the situation?
Sure. So I think that this is a moment where we need to put our politics aside and put any kind of or I guess I should have, if I could have said this earlier this weekend when the initial reports were coming out, this is a time when people need to set down their personal biases and their personal disdain or dislike for our president. They need to put that down and have a moment of humanity. And I would encourage, like, this is a moment when we need America to be stronger than ever, because as soon as the reports got out that President Trump had coronavirus, the stock markets across the world fell globally. So in any case, when people I've unfortunately seen on Twitter wishing the president harm, this comes at two different things. And I'm speaking much more calmly than I'm very upset about this. Because first off, it's a human being. And I'm not going to ignore the millions of coronavirus-related deaths across the world. Those are equally as important. However, not one of those deaths had direct implications on the stability of the world market. So on a human level, we need to care about our fellow human, whether or not he's a good person in your eyes or a bad person in your eyes. It's still a man. It's still a human. It's still a being. It's still one of us. So that's the first reason why you need to care about the health. And the second reason, as I mentioned, is the markets. And if the president of the United States goes down, then markets across the world will become unstable. And countries relying on this, namely us, will suffer and fall. We will plummet in points, and we will have to fall into because we have a new contract coming up to finance our state government coming up at the end of November. So if this were to happen right now, we would not have a lot of working speed and a lot of money to work with, given the current situation of the market and how the world sees our dollar come the end of November. And remember, we get all of our money from loaning from other countries. That's why we're $27 trillion in debt. So that's the first thing to care about. And the next, I'm not sure if you guys did, but if you saw the footage of the president walking out of the White House to board Marine One on his way to Walter Reed, he appeared to be standing on his own, doing his wave and walk, and he looked to be in fairly good health. So I think returning him to the Oval Office this soon might prove to be a safety risk, because I don't know how active the virus still is in him or if it is transmittable. But I would take the experts' advice on whatever they had to say at Walter Reed. After all, they all went through medical school and work there for a reason. So those are my first thoughts on that. Grant, turn it over to you.
Well, kind of touching back to what you said about what you saw on Twitter, I think that we all need to, it's not so much as long as we have the freedom of speech in our beautiful First Amendment, people are going to say whatever they want to say. It's not so much about regulating them and say, hey, you shouldn't say this sort of stuff about our president, because truth be told, there's people on the right side that said the same thing about Obama when they wished his death. So the way I look at it, I'm like, you know what? It's not so much you shouldn't say this versus you should say this sort of thing. I've always gone by the philosophy of I've never considered a difference of opinion in politics, religion, or anything else a reason to separate from or withdraw from friendship. And that was actually a direct quote from Thomas Jefferson. I've never really looked at this to where if I have a difference of opinion with someone else, I'm gonna wish for his death. I mean, look at Ruth Bader Ginsburg. There was people, once she died, I saw a lot of people on the right side saying like, oh, you know what? I didn't like anything she stood for, but I wouldn't want her to die. And there was a few that did want her to die, and they put it on social media, and then the left went crazy with it. The left was like, oh, you should be more respectful to her, yada, yada, yada. You shouldn't wish death upon someone else. And then here they turn right around and wish that Trump got COVID.
And that's also relatable to the earlier death a couple of years ago of Judge Antonin Scalia on the other side of the aisle with that same issue.
Yeah,
that's right. Kind of touching up on that, I'm not getting too off topic, but when Scalia, I mean, when the other, I'm working on 5 hours of sleep. when they went through the whole process again to get another Supreme Court justice in, Obama and Biden were both pushing to get another Supreme Court justice in. Now all of a sudden it's a problem. I mean, I talk
a lot of politics with my dad, as much as I know he doesn't enjoy it, but he's got a good grasp on it. He said, like, look, he told me, he's like, look, he hears the news and he's like, look, if it was the other way and it was the other side doing the same thing, the same exact thing would be happening. I'm just like, yeah. I mean, I just would like, and I'll have a moment of honesty here. I just wish Mitch McConnell would stop putting his foot in his own mouth. Like, he's
I
gotta
wish
learn
our
how to stop.
entire government would stop putting their foot in their mouth.
Yeah.
Well, that's what our government does.
But yeah, in essence, though, yeah, it's I don't want to wish death upon President of the United States for a myriad of reasons, but also primarily more than anything else. Yeah, he's a human being who I don't want to die. Not that I'm any more fond of him than anyone else, or any less fond of him than anyone else, but I just think personal tragedy. Everyone's there's many people who've befallen personal tragedy because of this virus, and I'd rather not have another situation where that happens, regardless of his status as president or not. It's just I really do hope like he recovers well, and then we can go from there. But I'm not going to wish, like you said, I'm not going to wish harm on him simply because I disagree with him. So,
Yep.
And to put this together on a sort of historic level, if we take a step back from who President Trump is, as Gerald, I'm not sure you mentioned yet, but just this weekend, also following his coronavirus-related admission to Walter Reed, a day or two later, he took his motorcade and did a loop around the center to wave to supporters and detractors around to just, I guess say, hey, you got nothing to worry about. And whether or not you think that this is a, show for him or for whatever, historically speaking, we've seen things like this of a president who is unwell or in a moment of where it's up in the air, and they've done, they've gone out there on that limb and showed people, hey, we are okay. Notably, I've got two examples. FDR famously, every time he gave an address, would not be in his wheelchair after he had his contraction of polio. He would not be in his wheelchair. He'd be up there standing, struggling, and made it through. Every single time he did that. And when Reagan's attempted assassination happened back in 1981, he was shot at earlier in the day, flown, had surgery end at 6:20, regained consciousness at 7:30. I was just looking at this earlier, and went on live television and made an address at 8:20 p.m.
That's crazy.
So 50 minutes.
Gotta love this country.
50 minutes after he regained consciousness from surgery for a bullet wound in his abdomen, he got on live television and said, I can reassure this. Here, I'm going to grab the quote. I can reassure this nation and a watching world that the American government is functioning fully and effectively. We've had full and complete communications throughout the day. So, I see this as one of the detractors will say that the president put his Secret Service at risk during this drive-about. But something to know about the Secret Service is that they're always with the president. So even when he is in his confined hospital room in Walter Reed, they're not sitting outside. There's 2 outside by the door and 2 inside. When he's in the motorcade, driver, passenger, 2-2. That's the detail. And they're at no more risk inside of that vehicle than they are inside of that room, especially because this has been a pandemic and they've been around him for this long, that I believe they've been wearing masks the entire time, because otherwise we would have had a myriad of Secret Service members been committed and the news would have been all over it somehow. But I don't think that it's putting them at risk. I think that this is to put it easily, a good old-fashioned show of American fortitude. I think that this, whether or not you love Donald Trump or you think that he is the worst president who has ever lived, this is something very important. And it's a show that the president's fine. Gerald, you?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, like I said, a moment of strength and obviously uncertainty, because for as many people as there were trying to, wish harm on the president, there were also people who were worried that, in that type of situation, someone would try to take advantage of the country and try to, we don't know. We don't know that there's a lot of uncertainty everywhere else in the world right now. So knowing that president's well enough to go back home, and obviously he has resources at the White House and medical expertise at the White House that they can go over there, and if he needs any more treatment or administering of medicine or anything of that sort, you know he's going to have it there. So I just feel like it's better for him to be in the Oval Office, and the security of him being in the Oval Office is a lot better than him being in the presidential suite at a hospital. Yeah. So
Yep.
but
Well, before we get to the latter half of our podcast, Grant, is there any issue that you would like to touch up on that has been relevant in the news? And I mean, the past month, it's been a while.
Yeah, actually, this is something I'm not too familiar with. We'll make it very brief. But Proud Boys, I really don't know that much about them. When I did my own research, it came back with actual like black members in Proud Boys, saying that Proud Boys wasn't racist or anything, wasn't about white supremacy or anything. So I'm getting mixed. I'm getting mixed stuff. I don't know what to believe. I don't know what to. Yeah, what you guys' thoughts on this?
Yeah. So the Proud Boys, in my interpretation of hearing, I mean, there's different nicknames for every group out there. But most notably, the Proud Boys are essentially the Antifa counterpart on the right wing. They're far right, almost, I guess, like neo-fascist in a sense. They're your, I mean, it's a really complicated way to try to describe something because you can't really boil it down to something simple. But they're primarily, we've seen them here around in like Portland and Kenosha when any of these events have happened that were met by you saw the anti-fascist group Antifa come in and do that. They were directly opposed and matched by the Proud Boys. So the Proud Boys have essentially been an armed militia that tries to represent the right wing as, in their opinion, as best they can. I would assume.
But
And
I thought too. But then I looked up on their website, and of course, what people claim versus what they do are two totally different things. Take BLM for example. But then I look on their website, and they say they're not anything about that. But then I see this video, and literally I have it actually right here. And it's this.
Message has never been about race. When you join our ranks, we don't ask you what race you are, what religion you are. We just accept you for who you are. We have liberals, and a lot of liberals. There's actually one prominent liberal that's here that's part of our ranks.
Should white supremacist groups also be considered the same?
Yes, they should. They should, and they're right. Anybody that espouses violence or race, they should be labeled a domestic terrorist group, just like Antifa.
I didn't always support Trump, didn't vote for him, so I wanted Trump to prove it. And he has proved it to me, and I will vote for him in 2020.
So, the video goes on, bro. I mean, I've just been hearing different things, kind of like back and forth with BLM. Gerald,
right.
Yeah. Again, complex issue. Again, everyone has an opinion on the matter, and everyone's going to try to spin it for their advantage, especially in the like. The one thing I encourage more people to do is, like I always say, do your own research. Because if you're spoon fed whatever your favorite news channel is telling you, you're not getting the full story. You gotta cross reference. You gotta look deep to public records. You gotta do what you can to really find out the information that you want. And it takes time. And most people, I'll be honest, most people are lazy and it's not convenient for them, so they just take what they can and run with it. But it's much more beneficial to have that information. That being said, I haven't had enough time to really dig into the history and the current situation with the Proud Boys. But again, my perception is that my perception is that, okay, the way the media is trying to portray them, at least, media places like MSNBC and, channels that are more leaning left, would say they're a white supremacist group that wants to terrorize the people who are there to peacefully protest. Someone like, I don't know, Fox News or OAN would probably say there are people who are trying to counter what they would consider domestic terrorist group of Antifa or people who commit to violence. They're there to protect property and all that. And there are also people who, and I think you've mentioned this before, there are people of as you see, of multiple races, multiple backgrounds who are embracing things that are defended by more, let's say, right-wing conservative politicians, such as the Second Amendment, which is a really big one. It, like you've always said, you believe a lot more people would be better off if they would embrace the Second Amendment and really, and I the more I look into it, the more I see that the reason in that is because, exactly, it's there for a reason, and even it has evolved, and even though like everyone has an opinion on it, and even my opinions are still mixed on it, but I still think, in general, should the acceptance of the Second Movement be there, Second Amendment, I think it'd be something of people saying, all right, I'm not that, scared. I'm complying, and I'm someone who, has a right to have this here. And again, it's just people who are exhibiting, or rather putting a show of, I am proud to be someone who's defending this side, especially against people who I think are doing harm to cities. But then again, that's exactly what other groups of people are doing. So it becomes a mess, and it becomes a lot of times a he said, she said. If you listen to them, they're going to tell you this. If you listen to that person, they're going to tell you that. And again, it's a tangled web. It really is. But I'm like you said, I'm viewing them the same as just about any other group. Do they escalate situation? I can't say. Sometimes they might quell. But obviously, the only thing that ever gets publicity is the negative side of whatever any group does. So I'll take everything anyone tells me with a grain of salt, and I'll do my own research. And that's just something I'm going to have to look into as we go along.
And taking a look from Political Research Associates, essentially I've found that the Proud Boys were originally founded by Vice Media co-founder Gavin McInnes.
Yeah.
And he distanced himself in 2017 from the current Proud Boys because their original focus were Western values and alt-right, while now it has more so shifted towards the focus of race. And so I would say the original Proud Boys, their message originally, and we can equally equate this to the Black Lives Matter situation on the other side, and that originally, with the Black Lives Matter focus was, yes, all lives matter, but Black Lives Matter right now. Like, this is what we need to talk about. This needs to be the focus immediately. And the Proud Boys were originally saying, hey, we need to take a step back and start, making things not so like as we see now with Antifa. We need to get away from that.
Right.
And then it took the movement that the radical sections of the Black Lives Matter campaign has taken, in which there are some people who go through and they loot and they riot. Yeah. And the Proud Boys have had those factions which have gone in and incited violence in these places where there's already some unrest.
Yeah.
All right.
What?
Go ahead. I don't remember who was just talking. All right. Well, Grant, you have to go soon, I believe, according to your schedule. So anything that you want to leave off with? Any closing remarks for you?
Closing remarks. Oh, no, I mean, not really. I'm always honored when people want to be able to talk about this sort of stuff really civilly. I mean, you'd be surprised how many times people will come up to me when I'm working and they already have their own preconceived notions about they'd want to come in there with a confrontation. And essentially, I'm doing what you guys are doing with me right now. We have a civil discussion, and more often than not, they kind of dial back and they're like, oh, I came in here wanting to start a fight, and through words, through civil discussion, and just when you go into these conversations and people can smell when you're trying to change their opinion or change their mind about something, and they don't really care about the person. What we're doing is we're not doing that. We're not here to persuade anybody. We're honestly we're having a civil discussion. More often than not, when you do that, that's when people's minds get changed. So I think I appreciate you guys having me on, and I think this is really where the founding and the brick. What's the word I'm looking for? I'm so sleep deprived. This is where the foundation is.
Get some rest. That's what you need next.
I wake up at 5:30 every morning. That's why. But this is the foundation of where people's minds gets changed, is right here through civil discussion. It's not through rallying on the street for either side. So
Yeah.
I appreciate you guys having me on here. I always enjoy it.
Yeah, well, we're all talkers and not fighters here. So where can people find you if they want to find more of your content?
Grant Fox is on any social media.
All right. Well, Grant, it was a absolute pleasure having you on here. For real. It's always nice to hear from people who care about the issues and have an educated stance on things. Thanks for joining us again. And can't wait till next time. We'd love to have you on again.
Yeah, me too. Yeah,
All right.
see-
Take care.
See ya.
All right, Gerald. So we are going to just take a little sidestep right here, if you wouldn't mind. And we can talk about the current coronavirus-related outbreaks inside of the NFL.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll be honest. I was surprised it took as long as it did for. And I'm not saying that obviously I'm not rooting for this to happen, but I feel like it was bound to happen with such a contact sport and a camaraderie that exists within teammates, and a non-bubble format of the league. We've seen that. I think if anything has been proven is that the bubble format that certain leagues like the NHL and NBA took to avoid the spread or possible contamination of the virus and propagation of COVID inside of the league and team systems, because the league knows that teams are tight, teams are family. They spend time with each other, they room with each other, they eat with each other, they sometimes they like I said, sometimes they sleep in the same room with each other, and families know each other. Yeah, and like all of that being, you're so close to someone, they say, all right, we're gonna let you have that camaraderie, but you have to stay here. The way that the NFL and MLB as well, if we can be retrospective about it, at least about what happened earlier in the MLB with the Marlins and the Cardinals, and in them, and now what is happening with, I believe it's the Titans,
and the Patriots. Yep.
Well, the Patriots actually they're playing right now.
The Titans had a larger scale outbreak, and the Patriots only had Cam Newton test positive, and the Chiefs had one of their backup quarterbacks who will never see any playing time in his career.
Not with Patty Holmes on there. But yeah, these this traveling kind of isolation doesn't seem to be showing the fruits of what they want. And again, I would have been surprised if there hadn't been a team that somehow ended up getting this virus. Bless you.
Thank you. Thank you.
But yeah, it's happened to the Titans. They seem to have. They said 15 members of the organization have been tested positive. And I guess they're just in lockdown mode, and they have to be in lockdown mode to really just take care of everything and say, all right, nobody move while we figure this out and make sure you guys are good to go. But I believe the steps the league has taken to really try to make sure that this happens. The problem is that I believe the NFL waited a really long time for trying to figure out a solution that they didn't think they needed when it came to the virus. They waited a long time. When they had the most time of any league, they did. And I feel like they could have come up with a better plan than they did. But in any case, honestly, same thing. I hope everyone gets better. I hope the team gets to play. But as long as teams are teams and they act like teams, because teams are family, there's always going to be the possibility that this happens. So.
Well, and relating to the fact that you need to kind of expect this if you're doing it in this way, the Las Vegas Raiders just had 10 players fined at least 9 players fined $15,000, and tight end Darren Waller fined $30,000 for mask violations at Darren Waller's charity event for kids for I guess supporting awareness for kids struggling with addiction. And so 10 members of the Raiders were fined at least $15,000 for that. And then just it was, I believe, today. Roger Goodell sent out a memo to each league official, and requiring new coronavirus protocols for the league. And among those, there are they will require a longer onboarding process for free agent tryouts, limitations on the number of tryouts per week, a ban on gatherings outside the club facility, and implement a video monitoring system to ensure compliance with protocols inside the facilities. And moving forward, Goodell wrote, the league will issue discipline that could include loss of draft choices or forfeit of a game if protocol violations occur that result in the spread of a virus.
Here's the thing with that. I believe the measures need to be taken and measures need to be serious to send a message. However, I still think it's the league's fault that there is even these discrepancies that have happened. They had more than enough time to make things clear about their policies that they would have needed, about the measures that should have been taken and implemented with enough time before the season even started. And with the cancellation of the preseason, I thought all of that was to make sure that you were ready to start the season. And more and more I look at it, it was more than just being the league itself, the league offices. I'm sure the teams took measures upon themselves, some more than others. But I also remember during week 1, during Monday Night Football, they announced that 3 coaches on opening weekend, I believe, or the second weekend, I'm not sure, of the games, they had fined 3 different coaches a total of more than $1 million in fines. And it was, there were, that's hefty. That is hefty, especially for a coach. I don't know how much coaches get paid sometimes. For a player make like Patrick Mahomes, a $500,000 fine, even for him with his super contract right now, is not going, that $500,000 is going to make a dent, is going to make an impact and make you think about it. So they were serious about it. But it goes back to the fact that the league didn't take enough measures with the amount of time that they should not be having to implement new things when they had an entire offseason following the draft situation to figure it out. And they didn't.
Well, this all should have been day one things that they had. All these new regulations and protocols should have been day one. They should have been, you can't gather outside of your team facilities. We're keeping this to a minimum. And this especially comes in importance because notably one coach of a football team is currently undergoing chemotherapy. That is Ron Rivera, head coach of the Washington football team, will finish out his final 3 weeks of chemotherapy while he is coaching. He was diagnosed earlier this year with squamous cell cancer in August and has been on chemo, which, as anybody who is familiar with those procedures should know, it significantly reduces your immune system's response to fighting outside viruses, bacteria infections, any kind of sickness. So the league needs to be hyper vigilant about this stuff. And as you perfectly said, the preseason was canceled and you thought that this would be what they were talking about and what they were dealing with. And it just, whether it's league offices or teams, it needed to be stronger from the league office. Just like mandates saying, you must do this. You cannot do this. You have to do this. You're not allowed to do that. There's those simple things would have changed the entire playing field. But also we have to look at it. There's the human aspect. We saw with the Florida Marlins, they got riddled, the Marlins got riddled with coronavirus after a couple of their players went out to a club after a game. No matter how much you want to try to regulate it, we're dealing with people. And we're dealing with adults who are pumped full of adrenaline during their games and their practices. And they're all in their 20s or 30s, so they all go out. That's their number one thing. And they're like, oh, I've always been going out. I'm going to go out. We're going to go out. We're going to have a good time. No, it's cool. We're not going to get sick. We're good. And then they get sick. As the famous phrase goes, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. And this is one of the things that we've seen. The Marlins played a stupid game, and they won a damn stupid prize. The Cardinals played a stupid game. What did they win? Ding, ding, ding. Behind curtain number 1, stupid prize. We're going to see the same thing in the NFL, and I would be surprised if we don't see another team outbreak before Week 17 ends.
Right, and we're praying that we're hoping and praying that it doesn't, because
right. but it when you think about it, it's almost a foolish prayer because this is a global pandemic that we're in the middle of, and to put things in we're going to say, hey, we're going to have 11 men lined up on either side of the field at any time. They're going to be different men every 5 minutes. They're going to run each other full speed and be breathing really heavily and spitting and doing all this all over the field. So, yeah, it sounds good to me. Nobody's going to get the virus.
Yeah.
But at least the league has been, if I can give one positive thing, at least they're being active right now. They were not proactive in any sense. I will not give them that. But they are they're being reactive in maybe the best thing that you could do, aside from canceling NFL, which would, tank their monetary gain, viewership, public morale. Even something as small as just having sports on makes all the difference for people. It's a constant, You get off work on Friday and you go to bed and you do whatever on Saturday, and then Sunday you always know there's going to be football on during the fall. And to get rid of that, that'll hurt public morale. That'll hurt, people's confidence. So I do think the NFL is taking the best steps moving forward. However, I am not sure that these were, I'm 100% sure that they did not take the proper precautions before starting the season.
Right. Yeah, definitely.
And if you guys want to catch more sports-related content, Gerald, where can they find us?
You can find us along with our other co-host, PJ Dolan, on the We Talk Sports podcast. Same thing. Find us on YouTube. You'll be able to find us. We also have our Twitter is We Talk Sports 20 at We Talk Sports 20. If you want to tweet us, we usually tweet out when we're going to have shows. Follow us. Give us a like, share us out, and we just trust me. We have fun.
It's a hoot and a holler.
Oh, especially this Friday after the agreements we had from last week.
Ooh, and with a week off, we get to talk about the Colts winning, the Dodgers about to sweep this NLDS.
Yep.
Y'all about to make me act up.
And the NBA Finals.
Those might be finished by the time our next podcast starts.
That is true. That is
so
true.
If you have any knack for watching sports or hearing about sports, or if you just love the soothing sounds of our voices, you can catch us.
Oh, they're great.
Yeah, they're semi-decent. Yeah. You can catch us on YouTube at We Talk Sports. Look us up. It'll be a logo that looks like the We Talk Politics logo, but sports-oriented and orange because that's the best color there is. Or catch us on Twitter at We Talk Sports 20, and we will tweet you out when each episode goes live so you can catch it live, and we do field questions.
Yes, we do.
So moving on from that, Gerald, have you heard about what's going on in Manzanilla?
Manzanilla?
Yeah.
Is that a place?
I don't know. I was hoping you would have something to go to because I haven't heard. Gerald, what's going on in the world? Give me one more topic to talk about.
All right. Going on in the world. If you want, I'll give you a couple of quick things real quick because we're not going to do any in-depth reviews of any polls. We do that almost every single week. But I'm just going to give you the overview of certain political things that are certain other newsworthy events that have been going on. If you remember correctly, obviously we talked about the betting odds. You should have seen The Shift, our favorite website, electionbettingodds.com by Maxim Lott and John Stossel.
The link will be down there.
Yeah, we'll put the link in the description and in the comment section. You can find it in almost every single one of our videos. They shifted dramatically following the incredible debate performances by both candidates. And
I think incredible is the perfect word because they're not credible.
Exactly. Absolutely.
They're not credible. So incredible is the perfect word for this.
But they've been pretty close. They were 2 or 3 days before the debates. Joe Biden and President Trump, they were very close. It was like 52 to 49.5 difference in terms of probabilities. They were neck and neck, and then it jumped up to Biden with a 60% chance to win, and he's still going up. He's going up in certain states and going up in the conglomerate, and President Trump was down all the way to 30. That was also due in part to the health situation that he was admitted to the hospital. But he's since coming back to the White House, he's gone up to 36.9%, almost 37%, but still a far cry from where he was even during the months of May, June, and July. No, really April, May, and June, when people thought the polls were really showing a swing for Joe Biden when he was the presumed nominee. The betting odds still had Donald Trump as really the favorite, but since then it's been Biden all the way, and he hasn't had this lead since the jump in late July, in how far he spread his favorability on the betting markets. In terms of the polls, certain polls I have shown different things. I still am keeping an eye personally on many of the Senate polls because the probability of the Senate has now gone over. Joni Ernst is no longer a favorite to keep her seat in the Senate as a Republican. They're predicting that she's going to lose her seat to Teresa Greenfield in Iowa, and that, along with other perceived changes based on polls, betting odds, and other things, would actually put the Senate at a 51-49 difference in favor of the Democrats should everything hold. Also, I'm also keeping an eye on the surprise of the century for me, which is the South Carolina Senate race that recent polls are showing in a dead heat tie, or all within the margin of error, which is surprising to me because I thought the South Carolinians were really going to get behind Lindsey Graham, but he is struggling in that state. He has not, I guess he's not shown face to them enough. He's not done, I don't know what it is, but there's not much voter enthusiasm for him, and there's a lot of voter enthusiasm and a lot of voter donations to his opponent, who is Jamie Harrison. They had a debate between them earlier in the state of South Carolina. I believe it was on Saturday, and Twitter was just blowing up with support for Jamie Harrison. So he's definitely gaining a lot of social steam, and he's gaining a lot of political steam and financial steam. And I'm very interested to see, should that happen by election day, that he ends up flipping that seat. That's a 52-48 Senate, even more so than what the Democrats would have even expected at this point. In terms of the electoral map, the betting odds are still showing the average where we are. They've gone a little further on the blue side, showing a 334-204 spread in favor of Joe Biden. That's, based on each state individually being given favorability ratings. Obviously, California has a 94% chance that it's going to go Democrat, as well as does Maryland, 95% chance. There's still some very, very close races in Ohio, in Florida, North Carolina, Iowa, and Georgia. These are extremely close, and it seems as though the lead that Joe Biden is getting in the betting markets in Pennsylvania are going up and up little by little. I guess the Scranton community is coming out during the polls, but it's just,
that old reliable Scranton community.
Yeah. He's going to say that on the campaign trail at one point. That's all I'm saying. But it's going to be, it's going to be an election for the ages. And again, I am completely aware of the fact that there's a possibility that the President Trump will claim victory when not every vote has been cast, considering that almost 39% of people say they intend to vote by mail or absentee this year. That's an incredibly large number for the system. I hope that the system can handle it. I really do. And that being said, some states, including Pennsylvania, but just conveniently, you're not allowed to open
our toss-up swing state for the whole election.
Exactly. Pennsylvania is going to be the key this, as much as everyone else is like, oh, what about Arizona? And no, those are setup pieces.
Pennsylvania and Florida.
Pennsylvania and Florida are Pennsylvania is the new Ohio, if we're being honest here.
It's always, Wait, it's all Ohio? Always has been.
Always has been. But in the state of Pennsylvania, I believe the law states that they're not allowed to open mail-in ballots until election day itself, which would just backlog the entire system. So again, you and me, we're already prepared to call it election week. We know that. We know that in unprecedented times, there's so many people mailing in that it's going to cause a backlog of certain states, including Pennsylvania, critical states like Pennsylvania, like other states, maybe possibly Florida with an aging population, maybe a state, maybe Iowa even, since it's a swing state. But there's also, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the voter attitude is going to be, but I know that if there's one thing I'm for sure seeing across social media and across the younger community and the older community, I have never seen a campaign to go register to vote and make sure to, not even last election cycle. Again, I'm thinking this is going to be the highest voter turnout we've seen ever. At least in this millennia, this side of 2000, and maybe even further back, because there's such a voter energy, whether it be positive or negative energy. There's a voter energy to try to get out and go vote and do everything you can. Just like early voting opened in Virginia, and the lines are still hours long, and it's just there's a sense that this is an incredibly important moment in this country's history, and that everyone's voice who has the ability to be heard is trying to make sure that they get heard. And I think that's a really good thing for the country. Say what you will about the differences in political views and other political stances. I think everyone's in agreement that if there's one thing you're going to do this year, if you're of age and if you've registered, it's that you're going to vote. Young people, as much as old people, as much as everyone in between. Everyone's going out to vote. They're making sure, and they're making sure of each other. I've seen this a lot in the younger community, a younger voter saying, all right, did you make sure you got yourself registered? Did you make sure you got this, that, and the other? Are you doing this, that, and the other? They're talking about it. It's an open conversation that everyone's having, and they're open about this part of the political process. And that, I think, is a very important thing, because for a long part, it's just been, oh yeah, I'm going to vote. Maybe not, maybe. No, everyone's, I think, and they're not forcing it. They're not saying if you don't. Some people are, because there always are some people who will try to make it a negative argument. But for the most part, I've seen positive reinforcement of people saying, hey, let's go do this. Let's make sure, we go out and we do our part and we vote. And I think that's a really good thing for the country, is that everyone's making sure that you're as involved as you can be to make sure your voice is heard in this political process. That's probably the best thing that's going to come out of this year. I hope something better, but if I can get nothing else, this is a good consolation prize for me, at least.
So on a other state level, just something really quick before we get out of here and let you all go on about your merry night.
Right.
Earlier this year in May, a Florida or a federal judge ruled that in 2018, Florida amended their state constitution to allow felons the right to vote, and that they would have to, after they had completed their sentences, pay any fines and fees before they were even eligible to vote. In May, a federal court ruled that this was akin to a poll tax in Florida. So they overturned the ruling, they ruled that it was akin to an unconstitutional poll tax for Florida, that these people would have to pay their fines and fees before they're eligible to vote. An appeals court narrowly overturned the decision 6-4 early in September, which means that as many as 1.4 million felons in Florida may not be eligible to vote if none of them pay their fines and fees that they need to. So this could be a huge impact. This could have a huge impact on the Floridian federal election. And as we mentioned, Florida as one of our swing states to look at alongside Pennsylvania. Florida is, I guess, holding out on the felon voting process, just due to they want to make sure that their state gets as much money from the these felons, or I guess I should say these people, because that's what they are.
Right.
They want to make as much money as they can from it before you get your constitutional right to vote, even though it's not a constitutional right to vote if you have a felony. But Florida changed it, and then it got federally ruled as bad, and then an appeals court said they overturned the federal ruling. So now if you are if you're living in Florida and you've committed a felony, you must pay your fines and fees before you're eligible to vote, which could play a big role in this election in Florida.
One thing I've seen,
as I said, 1.4 million people living in Florida with felonies.
One thing I've seen is that if Michael Bloomberg's putting his money to action, he's been doing that across the country for felons who do need to get. He's been letting, trying to help them pay off their legal fees and state charges and all that, so that they are able to freely vote. And I think, if there's anything that guy's going to do with his money, I think he's putting it to good use. Who's to say that a felon doesn't like President Trump? You never know. But because if we're being honest, he has enacted certain prison reforms that have gone through, and but in any case, I will counter that, and I will end with this: in the state of Tennessee, the situation is getting a little more hairy because of the unrest that happened in the state following the situation with the Breonna Taylor grand jury situation, that the AG still doesn't want to release those tapes, and that there's noise and inklings of malpractice, basically, if I could call it that, within the legal system that will only serve to really cause even more emotions to run high. And I've yet to think what that would mean for the people of Tennessee, who have been already really caught in the middle of a social justice battle for the ages. But the governor, I believe, signed some executive orders that made it illegal for certain practices during protests, including damaging of federal property and like vandalism and of the sort, and certain types of looting during emergency stay-at-home orders and all that, to be considered federal crimes,
which would be a felony.
Which would be a felony. Effectively, people who would be the most vocal about voting would, and maybe even be mischaracterized as being part of a group that has incited violence against federal property. Those who would be more inclined to do their best to go out and vote would have lost that right. And there's a lot of criticism of the law, and I think it's being challenged tooth and nail in the court system, in the circuit court system. I'm not sure where it's going to end up, where what the juries are going to say, but in any case, that's something to keep an eye on. This is, like you said, the right to vote is just, if there's one time that I've seen that everybody wants to vote, like I said, it's right now. And so taking away that right to vote, especially changing laws, whether it be directly to take away people's right to vote or because they're trying to quell the situation with this unrest, in any case, I think it begs to be reconsidered by the governor of Tennessee and by the courts who are going to review that situation.
Yeah, well, and as we've stated before, this is an historic election. So no matter what the outcome is, it will have good and bad consequences for the future of America. We've said it before, 4 years of Donald Trump could entail versus 4 years of Joe Biden. And, arguably, there's a case to be made that there would be a year or a couple of years of Kamala Harris if Joe Biden's mental faculties deteriorate, as he is not shown to be the most, I'll say, mentally agile. So or he could stay in office like Reagan did and do 8 years and just pump it out. But whoever comes in and whoever loses, there are going to be consequences, good and bad. So if you're not registered to vote already, just Google register to vote and then whatever state you live in, and then just click the links. Not the ads, though. Don't click the ads because those are probably wrong.
Right. But yeah, so there's plenty of resources again that is being shared, that are being handed out, that are
You
being,
can't miss it. You go online.
you
to
really-
any
you really
social
can't
media
miss-
platform.
I think there was a commercial from a group of strippers, basically, called "Get Your Booty to the Polls."
Look,
I am not joking.
I've been a registered voter since I was 16 years old, because you
Right,
can register to vote before you can vote. So I've been registered to vote since 2014. No, 2015. I've been registered to vote since 2015. And I voted in the 2018 gubernatorial, and I will vote in the 2020 election. And I hope that all of our viewers here will do that along with me. And all I can ask is the very same thing Gerald and I have been saying since day one of this podcast. Do your own research, find out who you want for what position, and vote your conscience. That's all it is.
Yeah.
Vote who you want to. Don't be a sheep. Don't be a hive mind. Don't think, oh, my friends are voting, Trump. I want to vote Trump. Or my friends are voting Biden. I guess I have to vote Biden. Don't do that. Think for yourself. You're your own person, and everything you do in your life is you. So don't, take a back seat on this. This is very important.
Right. Yeah. So, with that being said, I believe we've come to a conclusion of another episode.
Another beautiful episode of We Talk Politics. I would like to thank Grant Fox for being on this podcast. And I would like to thank Gerald Mendoza, my co-host. And I'd like to thank myself for being so damn good at this.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely.
But anyways, if you guys would like to hear more from us, we will be live from New York City. Not true.
No.
On Friday?
Yeah.
Friday. We'll see you there on We Talk Sports podcast. Catch us on Twitter. We Talk Sports 20. It'll be me, this guy, and PJ Dolan. And we're going to talk about how the Giants suck, the Colts are awesome, and how the football team is one game out of first. And
Half a
also
game, actually.
how the Yankees are great, the Dodgers are better, and the Astros still suck.
And the Orioles are just sad.
We don't talk about the Orioles.
You got to
We're not
mention
gonna
them a
talk
little
about
bit just to
We're not
remember.
going to talk about. All right, but that has been an episode of We Talk Politics. As always, I've been Corey.
And I've been Gerald.
And we will catch you next week.